Good morning. Let us now continue our discussion of Badal Sarkar's plays. Let us now shift to the second play, which is called Bhoma, which uses very similar kind of devices, literary devices, has a similar form to the previous play we discussed in the last session, which again had, which was called Procession or Michil, and both Procession as well as Bhoma have anonymous characters in them. Like Mitchell or Procession, in this play you again have 6 actors who are anonymous. They're all wearing the same dress. The stage directions are like this: 6 actors, identical dress. They may begin with some warm-up exercises to enter into the spirit of the work. They then stand in a circle, hold hands, and make eye contact with one another. Then they move, and each separately trying to make eye contact with the spectators. At the end, they stand in different positions. A melody of 4 descending notes. Each crouches and becomes a seed, sprouting, standing up, stretching, and spreading. Trees, birds singing, wind through the leaves. 2 of the actors turn into woodcutters, felling trees with the customary heave-ho, etc., clearing the jungle, paddy fields, ploughing, sowing, harvesting, and the group forms a machine complete with the rhythms and sounds. So you get a sense that these actors are all trying to use their bodies to create a scene of agricultural labor and work, and they're all busy trying to clear the jungles, trying to cultivate paddy fields. They're sowing and harvesting and so on. Right, so you have the rhythms of agricultural work and labor being embodied in these 6 actors. So the play has very similar themes, similar to the previous play we discussed, which is again functions as a satire of corruption, of inequality, of injustice. And Badal Sarkar does this in many ways. But primarily through the very intimate connection that the actors establish through their own bodies with the audience. And again, he is making use of a all-round kind of an Angan Manch, where you have audience, the people sitting around the actors, watching them perform. And the actors assume different voices through the play, and they also become props where necessary. And the play is also called Bhoma because Bhoma itself, like Khoka in the previous play, becomes a symbol of many things, right? Bhoma is invisible, but at the same time pervasive symbol of exploitation, of suffering, of disease, of poverty, and of the exploitation, more specifically of the rural farmers, of the peasants, right, who have soaked the soil with their own blood as they work to feed the rest of the country, right? So it really is in some sense an acknowledgement of and it's also an indictment, a satire of the exploitation of the rural masses, of the rural peasantry, as they invest their sweat and blood in trying to harvest. But of course, it's also not a romanticized picture of agricultural life, of rural life, but it is also trying to expose the harsh realities of what it means to belong to a rural world, to be a debt-ridden, exploited peasant or farmer who is at the mercy of the state and the government, and and has to also bear the burden of paying taxes, right? So or is also at the burden of having to repay loans to the banks. And this is also a reality that we see even today with the large and widespread Kisan marches that we have, of farmers who commit suicide because they are unable to actually repay the loans that they have been given by the banks or by the government. So this play in some sense also has a lot of contemporary significance and relevance to the present reality of the exploitation of farmers and farmer suicides. So if you look at the voices, the different 6 voices that of the actors who act in the play, They're largely anonymous voices, and you're not sure what the conversations are about generally. There is no, in fact, as Bal Sarkar himself says in the stage directions of the play, he says that um, I was introduced to the Sundarbans district by Tushar Kanjilal, headmaster of the Rangabelia village school. I had heard Bhoma's story from him. So this play is inspired from a character called Bhoma that the playwright Bal Sarkar knew from the Sundarban district in southern West Bengal. This is the kind of mangrove, deltaic plains in the mouth of the where the Ganga meets the Bay of Bengal, right? But Bhoma's story is not there in this play. Seeing, feeling, and learning about our surroundings shock us, hurt us, anger us. These have come out in disjointed, dramatic pictures. Bhoma's picture was then part of those pieces. But when those pictures were strung together into a play, then somehow it was Bhoma's image which started to become the link. In the end, the play could not be called anything but Bhoma. When the pieces were being put together as a play, there were others in Shatabdi, that is Bal Sarkar's group, who had also created images out of their experience and feelings which had been incorporated in the play. In that way, Bhoma is not entirely my creation. In this play, there is no character, no story, no continuity. Whatever there is to say, the actors say directly to the audience through sounds, words, and their whole body. That was how Shatabdi staged Bhoma. The first performance was in Rangabelia village on 21st March 1976. Bhoma can be performed by 8 to 10 actors. Shatabdi used 6 actors with another 4 or 5 joining in the singing and in creating sounds. The speeches can be distributed differently in keeping with the resources and requirements of the producing group, as long as one consistently goes on searching for Bhoma, and 3 as in 1 as in the actor number 1 consistently goes on searching for Bhoma, and actor number 3 speaks of love. Shatabdi productions have gone through such changes, and so on and so forth, right? So, and then you also have 2 basic tunes, musical tunes, that are used in the backdrop of the play. So, as Bal Sarkar says, you have many refrains in the play. There are lots of repetitions in the play, which are supposed to impress the memory of the audience with feelings of deprivation, right? A sense of protest against deprivation, against exploitation, and the longing for love, to be loved, to be able to bind humanity through love, right, by sharing resources, right? Because the entire play really reflects the inequitable access and distribution of resources between different sections of society. And so this in some sense also exposes the social hierarchies, social and economic hierarchies between the haves and the have-nots, right? So, and Bhoma becomes a symbol of that sense, that deep sense of exploitation and the protest against exploitation. So there are certain refrains. For example, if you look at page 61, there is actor number 2 constantly says, there's one discussion which goes on. So one of them is actor number 2 saying, I'm a stenographer in Samson and Blackbird Company. My salary is now, and this line has no punctuation whatsoever. It's one continuous sentence. I am a stenographer in Samsung and Blackbird Company. My salary is now 455 rupees. My take home pay is 428.40 rupees after provident fund deductions. I have a wife, 2 sons, a daughter, my mother, 2 young brothers, and a younger sister at home. The elder of the 2 brothers has passed his BSc but hasn't got a job in 1.5 years. He gets 110 rupees through tuitions. The youngest brother is going to sit for the BA Part 1 examination, and sister is in school in class 10. My wife has passed her school final. She cooks, my mother cooks, my eldest son is in class 4. And this is how the entire line is, right? So this is repeated off and on, okay? Another refrain that you see in the play is this actor number 3 constantly saying, oh shut up. So he can't stand actor number 2's constant complaint, or this constant reporting, description of his own life, right, of his own family life. So actor number 3 says, oh shut up, I fell in love with a girl. Now note how language itself breaks down. Right? He's unable to construct a clear sentence, and in the process he gets muddled up and confused, and then he is finally silenced. You know, I fell in love with a girl. The others laugh out aloud. Three gets mixed up. No, no, a girl fell in love with me. I mean, a love fell in me. A girl, I, her, that is that girl, my love, I love a girl. The laughter has become a roar. Three puts his hands to his ears. I'll kill you. Laughter becomes louder. Three falls to the ground. The laughter becomes softer and stops in the end. Right? So he's unable to construct a clear sentence confessing the love that he feels for a girl because the people are laughing at him. Right? So he's unable to confess his love affair, and this again becomes a repeated refrain throughout the play. One more refrain, of course, is this whole discussion about blood. Right? So there's a constant talk about warm blood and cold blood. Right? So actor number 2 says the blood of fish is cold. Actor number 1 says the blood of man is also cold. Actor number 3 says no, the blood of man is warm. Actor number 1 says it was before, now it's cold. Theory of evolution, Darwin. Had man's blood not grown cold, he wouldn't have survived. 3. What would he have done then? 1. Died, become extinct like the dinosaurs. 3. The blood of the dinosaurs, was it cold or warm? 1. I don't know. 3. The dinosaur was a reptile, wasn't it? The blood of a lizard is cold, isn't it? So this again is another refrain. Now, what do these refrains mean? Right. So for the last refrain we discussed is about how man has become cold-blooded, right? And that becomes a suggestion of how man has become more and more insensitive. He has been desensitized to his own natural environment, right? Through his own social environment. He's unable to respond anymore to the needs of others, right? The ecological system, right? The balance of nature. He seems to be primarily responsible for upsetting the balance of nature and even the balance of human life itself, right? So he has grown cold-blooded simply out of his own desire to survive, right? So how have people become so cold-blooded that they're not able to be sensitive anymore to the needs of others? Then again, like the previous play, there's again a satire of nationalism, of the glory of the nation, right? So what is India? What does India mean to these characters or actors? 2, 4, 5, 6 say, see India, see India, see India. 1. India. 2. Bharatvarsha. 1. Mohenjo-daro, Ayodhya, Patliputra. 2. The city, the great city, the great city. 1. Harappa, Indraprastha, Varanasi, and 2, 4, 5, 6 say Calcutta. 1. Delhi, Bombay, Madras, and 2, 4, 5, 6 Calcutta. 1. The great city. 2, 4, 5, 6 Calcutta. Right. So the 1, of course, is the harking back to the ancient past of the country, of the nation, in terms of its historical Indus Valley sites, or through the sites of its ancient kingdoms. But then there's also this other reference to the metropolitan cities, right? So the metropolitan cities like Delhi, Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta are the ones that get the maximum share of resources. They're the ones that are most powerful, right? They're the ones who have the richest of the rich. And Calcutta, of course, it seems to be ambiguous because it is also, they're not able to make out whether Calcutta is a rural town or an urban city, right? It seems to have, at least during the time when this play was performed, they're not sure whether Calcutta is a proper city or not, right? Partly because of its power cuts, partly because of the waterlogging that happens during the rains. They're not sure whether Calcutta is a modern city or not. And what does it mean to be a part of a modern city? Then there are again certain very familiar refrains. An actor number 1 says, what is a sign of urban modernity? Right? So 2 says, Hindustan Mark II, Fiat 1500, the Maruti is coming, the small car, the people's car. Right? So there are all these new technological innovations and amenities that make a city what it is. Right? So 1 is the car, the people's car. 1 is television. 1 is the metro rail, flyovers, the second Hooghly Bridge, and so on. Right? So these are all signs apparently of the modern city. Now actor number 1 says, but 75% of India's population live in villages, not in cities. 3, so what? 1, village. 3, the village, the lovely village, the charming village, the beautiful village, and so on. Right? So the exoticization of the village, as though the village were this repository of Indian culture, when actually it is not. The village is also not an innocent space of culture, right? It is already been divided by many differences, many hierarchies of caste, class, and so on, right? Then one more common refrain in the play is these actors who assume the voices of farmers who need water, land, who need money to buy water, right? To pump water from the ground. They need money to buy fertilizers. They need money to buy seeds, right? So there's one common refrain throughout the play is the voices of the farmers, the poor farmers who don't have any access to credit to get access to these kinds of basic resources which they need for their own life, for their own farming, right? So act number 1 says, and acres of grey arid land. Others grey arid, grey arid. 1. A handful of green boro paddy in a sea of grey soil. 4. Boro paddy? What the hell's that? 1. The Ravi season paddy. When there is no rain, when the soil is dry. Then everybody is at work, movements of drawing water. 2. Actor number 2, we want water, give us water. We want water, give us water. We want water, give us water. 4. Plenty of water deep down in the earth. A lot of water, a lot. 5. Who's going to draw it? Who will draw it? Who will draw it? Draw it. 2. We need fertilizers, give us fertilizers. We need seeds, give us seeds. We need water, give us water. We need seeds. 4. There's nothing, nothing, nothing. 1. No water, no fertilizers, no seeds, no land, no clothes, no food, no water, no work. So you notice the formulae of that Badal Sarkar uses when it comes to folk theatre, or not folk theatre, but body-centric theatre which focuses on the actor's body. There has to be these constant repetitions, refrains, right? Then there is another scene in the play which is about the farmers. The poor farmers desperately need loans from banks in order to buy water pumps that are fueled by diesel, right? But diesel is expensive, and they're unable to get loans to buy water pumps because they don't have any security, right? They don't have any assets that they can give to the bank in exchange for loans, right? So they are struggling with that also. So actor number 1, for example, says that he talks about the sorry state of farmers in the district of 24 Parganas in West Bengal. There are 250 families in the village, of which 60 families have each less than an acre of land. 90 families have no land at all. They work on other people's lands as hired laborers. They get 4 rupees a day as wages. Each of these laborers has 5, 6, 10 dependents. At 4 rupees a day, you can't afford to buy rice, wheat, yes, but not enough for chapatis. If you make a porridge of it with water and salt, it goes a long way and fills you up. If you can't get wheat flour, there's corn flour. If you can't even get hold of that, you starve. You can't always get a 4 rupees a day job, maybe at most for 100 or 125 days a year. Nowadays, thanks to tube wells and pumps to draw out groundwater for irrigation, you get some spring crops, wheat, ravi paddy. So there's some work even in April and May, but then there's no electricity. If it's a diesel pump, diesel is expensive and you don't get it always. You don't get fertilizers. The price of fertilizers has doubled. Urea used to be 1 rupee 15 paise per kg at the control rate. Now it's 1 rupee 95 paise per kg. Then again, actor number 1 says, please, please, I haven't finished my story yet. There is no electricity, but there are the poles and wires all these 3 years. Now the poles have come loose. The wires are used as clothes lines by the villagers. If we get electricity, if the canals are dredged, if we have more tube wells, only 3 million rupees, then the whole of the Simulpur Anchal, all the 3,000 acres of land will yield gold. The second Hooghly Bridge, actor number 2 says, the second Hooghly Bridge, when shall we have it? Actor 3, the stadium, when shall we have it? Actor 4, the metro rail, when shall we have it? Actor 1, listen, you get 7 quintals of the old kharif per acre if you depend on the rain alone. So 1 crop a year yields only 7 quintals per acre, while the high yield paddy, wheat and vegetables, 3 crops a year, the same plot of land yields 4 times as much of it if there's water. That's only 3 million rupees. Actor 2, the second Hooghly Bridge, only 600 million rupees. Actor 3, digging in Calcutta for better streets and better sewers, only 2000 million rupees spent so far. Actor 4, the metro rail will cost only 3000 million rupees. Actor number 1, only 3 million. I've calculated it. Only 3 million for the Simulpur Anchal. So there's this constant refrain asking that, imagining that they only need 3 million rupees to be able to buy diesel pumps that will help them pump water from the ground, right? If they have 3 million rupees, right, they only need in just about enough, it'll be enough to get electricity to dredge the canals, right? And if they have more tube wells, then they hope that the entire district of Simulpur will yield crops, will yield a lot of food grains, right? And that is their dream, right? But these are all empty dreams, right? They never get fulfilled. They're all empty promises, empty dreams. They're just these elusive promises the government makes to the farmers and peasantry, but that never happens. While the city seems to be spending a lot more money on its technology in terms of the Hooghly Bridge or the metro rail, but they're not willing to spend even half the amount for agriculture and for the survival of the rural masses. Then when some of the poor farmers go to, not poor farmers, but the manufacturers of the parts of this diesel pump, when they go to ask for a loan from the bank wants to first know what security, what assets they have that they can give to the bank in exchange for the loan. Actor number 4 says, sir, can we get some loan from your bank? 5, how much? 4, say 20,000. 5, and who are you? 4, Mahamaya Engineering Company. Sir, Belilius Road, Howrah. 5, what do you manufacture? 4, we make diesel pump sets, sir. Sambird. 5 horsepower. 5, angrily, but that's made by Samson and Blackbird Company. 4, yes sir, it's sold by Samson and Blackbird Company. We supply them. 5, parts. 4, oh no sir, not just parts. We assemble the whole set. We even stick their nameplate for them. We even prepare the specification literature for them and supply it printed and ready. 236, Sambird. 1, diesel pump set. 236, Sambird. 1, 4,625 rupees only. The machine starts again. 4, we get 2,500 from them. Even that is not paid in cash. They pay us only after sets are sold. So we are always short of capital to make new sets. That's why we need this loan, sir. 5, the bank interest rate is 14% now. 4, we know it's 14%, sir. That's why we ask for it. We don't get it below 35% from the private money lenders. What are your assets? 5 asks. 4 says, assets, sir? Well, the factory shed is there. 5, how big? 4, 1100 square feet, sir. 5, your own or rented? 4, there's a 20 years lease on the land, sir, but the shed is ours. 5, how many workers? 4, we have 28 working now, including the unskilled labor. And so on and so forth, right? So they need a loan from the bank because they don't have enough capital. They don't have enough money. They don't get enough money from the sale of these pump sets because they're not paid in cash. They're only paid in cash after the pump sets are sold to the farmers. So they're always short of capital, which is why they need a loan. But then the bank is not willing to give them money without securities or assets. 5 asks, the banker asks, in that case, what will be the security here? 4 says, we will repay the 6,000 from the 20,000 of that the loan we get and get the shed back for you, sir. With the remaining 14,000, we shall meet the new order we've already got. In the meantime, we are sure to get the 17,000 they owe us for old consignments. 5, nothing doing. 4, sir. 5, you can't have it without security. Get the shed back first. If everything else is satisfactory, you can get up to 10,000 on it. They're not able to get a loan from the bank, right? And finally, the machine itself seems to break down, right? So the banker says, if we give you a loan without any security, the bank will have to be closed. What about that? Again, picks up the phone, speaks, hello, Mukherjee. 1,30,000 at 12% to Samsung and Blackbird Company. Yes. Puts down the phone, then announces Sambird diesel pump set. Power unlimited. Crops unlimited. Unlimited water the lowest cost. The farmer's friend Sambird. In the meantime, 4 comes and puts his hand to the machine. It breaks down. 4 also breaks down beside it. a tune 2. 1 and 2 get up slowly, eyes closed, palms touching barely, moving slowly to a common rhythm. Okay, so the machine itself breaks down towards the end. Earlier of blood. So actor number 2, actor number 1 says, my heart bleeds. Can a drop of it germinate even a prickly thorn on this earth? 2, this earth has sucked up so much blood already, hasn't it? 1, yes, hollow earth, deep down, drop by drop this blood has seeped through and gathered in a subterranean reservoir. 2, from deep down the earth comes the water which turns a small patch of the vast wasteland into green in April. 1, water from deep down the underworld. 2, who draws it up? 5, Sambird. 2, does the summer crop grow in blood? 1, drops of blood trickle down the golden ears of corn. 2, golden corn, that's what you see only through train windows, and so on. Then look at the plight of poorer farmers who don't have enough land to cultivate crops. They are poor. 1 asks, is that your own pump set? 2, good heavens, no sir. Where could I get it? I have only 1 acre of land, sir, and that to mortgage the moneylender. What can I get bank loan on? Remember, the loans that these farmers get from moneylenders have a much higher rate of interest of 35%. Number 1 says, who's the pump set then? 2, Gadai Mitters. He doesn't have much land this side, so he sells water. 1, what's the price hike? 2, this year it's risen to 7 rupees per hour. Till last year we got it for 5. For poor people like us, it's crazy to cultivate paddy in the dry season. You can call it beggars craving to ride horses. Say I have hardly an acre and it's going to cost me at least 1,200 rupees for water alone. On top of that, there are fertilizers, pesticides. But then with good luck, if there's not much trouble with pests, with your good wishes, sir, it's not going to be too bad. How did Gadai Mitter get his own pump? Actor number 1 asks. Actor 2 replies, for him it's easy enough. He has more than 25 acres of land. He had a Ruston pump already, 5 horsepower. And last year he took a loan from the bank and brought the Sunbird. 3.6, Sambird. 5, nationalized banks in the service of agriculture. 4, a running factory for sale going cheap. 1, those fields there, do they belong to Gadai Mitter? 2, no sir, the land belongs to 3 different people. Gadai Mitter cultivates those on sharecropping terms. 1, what, a rich man like Gadai Mitter, a sharecropper? 2, well sir, it's a different kind of sharecropping. Those people have no money. How can they cultivate in the dry season? The land would have lain fallow if left to them. So Gadai Mitter cultivates it on a share basis, gives them 3 quintals per acre. 1, only 3 from a yield that's going to be at least 20 quintals. 2, yes sir, that's how things are in the villages. If I don't have any luck this year, that's what's going to happen to me next year. What's to be done, sir? We have no money. So you see the importance that money has in the rural economy. If they don't have any money, then poor farmers who cannot grow anything in the dry season have to become sharecroppers for richer farmers like Gadai Mitter, and they have to work on their on the lands of richer farmers as hired laborers, and they get a very small share of the land that they cultivate because they are being exploited, right? So they are unable to cultivate anything in the dry season, and that is when they are most susceptible to exploitation, right? So the very fabric of the rural economy seems to depend on getting bank loans and being able to repay bank loans on very low interest rates, right? Because they don't have any assets or securities against which they can get loans. So it becomes this vicious cycle of debt and poverty. On page 82 and 83, again, there is this constant refrain of the I, right? So here it's again, there is this discussion of who Bhoma is. 3, 4, actor 3, 4, 5, 6 ask, who is Bhoma? 1, Bhoma is 1. Bhoma is, I can't, Bhoma, I just can't put you into a neat and tidy formula. 2, there is no Bhoma. 3, 4, 5, 6, there's no Bhoma, no Bhoma, no Bhoma. 1, there's no Bhoma, there's only I. 3, no, it's I. 4, no, not you, it's I. 4, oh no, it's I. 6, stop, it's I. I. Right now, there's this constant, this contrast between the individualism, right? The individualism that comes with privilege, with economic privilege, economic comforts, right? That you don't care for others. You're a selfish I, right? But then you also have Bhoma, which represents many eyes, right? The Bhoma is also symbol, a plural symbol of many eyes, of many people, of many poor farmers and peasants who have been exploited, who have suffered the plight of poverty and being debt-ridden, right? So in some sense, Bhoma is also a symbol of these different, of the exploited rural folk and masses. And there's also on 84 a satire of how a lot of the hard-earned money, the taxes that people pay are going towards sending students to Kanpur, Delhi, Bombay, Madras, to the prestigious IITs, right? So they're being sent to IITs to educate, and the entire nation seems to be selling its pots and pans to send them, and then abroad to be educated further. The other problem in the play has to do with the problem of nuclear war, right? Can the production of nuclear power have any peaceful and harmless consequences, right? It seems impossible that even if nuclear power is being used for peaceful and harmless uses, as for example for production of power, then it still seems to harm the environment. So the harm that humans create towards the environment becomes, in terms of radioactivity, becomes another problem in the play, right? And there's also this nightmare that haunts humanity in terms of the atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in terms of the generations of deformed children that were produced from the bomb blast, right? So there's this fear of disease and deformation, right? So actor 1 says, explosive, explosion or peaceful use, there will be the ashes, atomic waste. How will you tackle its radioactivity? 3, all that's going to be destroyed. 1, how? By sealing it in a lead box and thrusting it down a salt mine. That's what is done. But how many salt mines are there on this earth? 2, 4, 5, 6, this earth. 1, how many are going to be left? 3, crap, all this is crap. 1, even then, the minimum time it will take for the radioactivity to be destroyed is 400 years. Do you know the maximum time it can take? 3, how much? 1, 24,000 years. 3, stunned, 24,000 years. Human civilization is only 5,000 years old. Within this time, man has made arrangements for the next 24,000 years. 2, 4, 5, 6 say rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. 1, 24,000 years. If you calculate 12 years as an age, then 2,000 ages. The atomic advance of this world lived for ages, right? So it's obviously a parody, a satire of how human beings have apparently taken care of the next 24,000 years, which is the time it takes for nuclear waste to disintegrate, to destroy radioactivity. And this constant refrain that's there in the play in terms of farmers who need water, can you give me a drop of water, is being juxtaposed to the amount that the country seems to spend on its technology in nuclear power, right? And there's a stark contrast, an irony between the two, that the country is willing to spend millions of rupees on bridges, on flyovers, on nuclear power, but is not willing to make its priorities clear by spending money, even the smallest amount, on agriculture and on the lives of the rural masses, right? So there's no money to provide them. There are no loans to be given, interest-free loans to be given to farmers, for them to be able to acquire diesel pumps that will give them access to water from the ground during the dry season, right? So something as basic as this is not being taken care of. And then the nation seems to be more interested in producing radioactive nuclear power, which has produced deformed generations of children. And then Bhoma here on 94, who Bhoma is becomes clear when actor number 1 says, Bhoma is the jungle, Bhoma is the cornfield, Bhoma is the village. 3/4 of India's population live in villages. Billions and billions of Bhomas in the cities will live on the blood of Bhomas. So here it's become very clear that Bhoma represents the blood, the exploited rural masses. And of course, the play ends with the actual Bhoma that Bal Sarkar had heard about, the Bhoma from the Sundarban. And again, the play ends on this note of how the Sundarban, a natural landscape of mangroves, is being destroyed in the human desire to further expand the cultivation of their lands, the cultivable land, right? So many forests are being destroyed Animals like the tigers and the snakes and crocodiles are being destroyed. Their habitat is being ruined, and there are people who live in the Sundarban who are also being trapped between the expansionism of urban modernity, of the urban modern world, of urban modernism, of technology, and on the one hand, and on the other hand, they're also the victims of tigers and crocodiles. So you're talking about a section of people who live in indigenous communities who live in the Sundarban, who are constantly being displaced and exploited by human civilization, but also by the animals that they cohabit with. Right? Actor number 1 says, no, not any longer. It's not a forest now. The forest now is cleared. Jungle hasil. 2, 3, 4, 6. Hasil, what do you mean? 1, the Orans, the Mundas, the Santals, the Aboriginals, the jungle hasil. The forests cleared. The forests cleared to make way for Abad, for cultivation. 2, 3, 4, 6 ask, Abad, what's that? So that is the cultivation, the chopping of trees, the deforestation of the land, and the clearing of the land for cultivation. Bhoma. Who's Bhoma? Bhoma's hungry. Bhoma wants rice, sir. Ask them to make it for him. Who's Bhoma? Bhoma. Who's that? Bhoma. Bhoma of the Sundarbans. Who's Bhoma? Bhoma. Who's that? When Bhoma was 16, he came to clear the forest. Father, mother, and 2 kid brothers. The jungle of the Sundarbans. Let the rice cook, sir. Bhoma will rest. The jungle Hasan, the Sundarbans. The principal speaker today is Dr. Sarbhanga Sundar Sundaraya, Chief Planning Advisor, Sundarban Planning Commission. When Bhoma was 20, the tree that he could fell alone in 3 hours, 2 men couldn't work a whole day through. Right? So Bhoma is also that man from the Sundarbans who is again one of those many endangered indigenous populations whose habitat is being threatened by urban society. Now, Bhoma is also someone who has left the Sundarban in search of education, in search of jobs, has come back to Sundarbans, and is also again responsible for the clearing of the forest for the purposes of cultivation. So Bhoma represents many things, right? It also represents the transitions that certain populations make from their indigenous habitats to cities, the migrations that happen, the displacements that happen, the exploitation of these displaced populations, the aspirations of young men and women who come from these populations, from these regions of the world to cities in search of employment and education. So there's again this interesting contrast between the rise of the rate of interest, the unfair distribution of investments, the disaster of inflation, right, hunger, poverty, and that is also being contrasted to Bhoma. Bhoma's mother died of snake bite. His father was dragged away by a crocodile before his very eyes. The younger brother couldn't stand the tamarind and salt water mixture and died of diarrhea. Bhoma is blind in the right eye. There's a gaping hole where his right cheek was. The tiger is also dead, killed by Bhoma's axe and his brothers. The brother next to Bhoma is still living. He lives in the aboriginal neighborhood of the village of Rangabelia. He's landless and an agricultural labor. He gets work only 90 days a year at 3 rupees a day. So Bhoma represents these different realities. Realities of a family that has been killed by snakes or by crocodiles. Bhoma, who survived a tiger attack, right? Bhoma, whose brother, lives in the neighborhood, but he is a landless agricultural laborer who only gets work 90 days a year. So the problems of seasonal employment of farmers, right? So you have all these problems that Bhoma represents and embodies. So the Sundarban, in some sense, becomes that very precarious place that is threatened both by urban expansionism and by the forces of nature, right? So the land is gone, the crops are gone, there's salt water. Remember, it's all salt water, so you can't cultivate too much when you have salt water, when you have the water of the Bay of Bengal moving into the river and spreading into these different islands. You have salt water, the land is gone, the crops are gone, homes are gone. 3 says an acre of my land was eaten away by the Vidya river 3 years ago. 4, but we have to pay revenue still on that piece of land. 2, and we will have to go on paying till the next government survey. 3, my land was eaten away by the Vidya river. So look at the plight of these indigenous communities who are threatened by natural calamities, by the shifting course of the river, by the problems of brackish salt water on which they can't cultivate anything, and on the other hand they are forced to repay the loans that they owe the government, right? So they have all these problems, right? So play does a very sensitive job of exposing the social realities of endangered, displaced communities like them that are always on the verge of bankruptcy, of debt, of death, right? Both by natural forces and diseases. Actor 1 asks, no, wait, we can't really just tell now whether man's blood is cold or warm. Not yet. Perhaps. No, it's again getting confused, becoming a tangle, a mess. Who is Bhoma? An aboriginal barbarian woodcutter? Why should I bother with, why should we go to him? And 5. Bhoma wants to eat, sir, eat rice. 1. How can you eat Bhoma? If you eat rice, we won't get our delicious biryanis. A queer picture for 1 rupee, a picture for 10 rupees, pictures for 10, 20, 100 rupees. We have brought up your blood with these pictures, Bhoma. We have brought up the rice and taken it away from your mouth. No, wait a minute. Again, everything is becoming confused. Then actor 1, this earth belongs to everybody, all of us, doesn't it, Bhoma? You wielded your axe, killed tigers, got mauled by the tiger, so that you could dig some rice out from the niggardly fist of this earth. Didn't you, Bhoma? This earth? This earth. Yes, this earth. This earth belongs to all of us, doesn't it, Bhoma? If we all of us could work our hardest to make everything we need, and then all of us shared all we produced, then that queer picture that lets us buy up your blood to drink, the picture that you don't have and therefore can't get your rice, if we could destroy forever that queer, obscure, obscene picture, I can't explain it, Bhoma. I can only understand if you don't rise up with your axe, the forest of poisonous trees will never be cleared. My Abad, our Abad, the Abad is in a splendor of gold and green, the Abad of our dreams. Bhoma, Bhoma, Bhoma. Right? So here Abad also acquires the connotation of being clear. What are you clearing? You're clearing not just the land, you're also clearing the very notion of private property, right? Yes, I mean it's exactly that if the earth belonged to all of us, if we shared all our resources, if we shared all that we produced, then there would be no room for competition, right? For rivalry, for individualism. There would be no room for hierarchies, right? So the play actually seems to end on a very socialist and communist note, right? One says, hungry, hungry. Bhoma lies almost lifeless with hunger. Bhoma the beggar, his axe is rusty. All around there grows a jungle of poisonous weeds and parasites. Poison. There's the smell of poison in the air. There's the taste of Bhoma's blood on the tongue. We drink Bhoma's blood and laugh and play. There's blood dripping down the sides of our mouths. Dripping, dripping, the poisonous plants are growing, growing. My blood, man's blood, becomes cold, cold, cold. But Bhoma is there. I know Bhoma is there. I know that's why I have dreams. Dreams. Bhoma has risen. Bhoma has risen. He has taken up his dusty axe. He's grinding it, sharpening it. There are forests all around him. There's the forest in Bhoma's eyes. Bhoma's grip becomes stronger. The vice of the grip presses harder on the handle of the axe. The torn eye lights up with the fire that killed the tiger. Bhoma is rising. We are rising. The forest of poison trees. Pick up your axe, Bhoma. It's too heavy. I can't pick it up. You pick it up, Bhoma. Come on, hit it. Heave ho. Right. So the play actually ends on these woodcutters who are chopping down these poisonous trees that have taken on the environment, the habitat of the Sundarban. But these poisonous trees aren't, literally poisonous trees. They're also symbolic of the danger that urban societies, that urban modernism, that the state poses in the forays, in the incursions it makes into these other marginalized habitats, right? These ecosystems that are fragile and that have been rendered fragile and endangered by the activities of the state and urban cities, right? So in some sense, the play exposes the realities of the inequalities, the structural inequalities between the city and the non-city spaces, right? And the Bhoma becomes a symbol of just that, of exploitation, of poverty. It also becomes a symbol of hope, that perhaps if we could all be Bhomas, then we would actually be able to, we would realize that the need to share resources, to be able to have an equitable distribution of resources, so that we can all, in some sense, cohabit, live together with a greater sense of peace and harmony, right? So that was actually Badal Sarkar's play called Bhoma. Thank you.